Hi, everybody. Welcome to the panel Reinventing Value and Scarcity for Photographers. We are with us today with Jean-Michel Pailhon, Nathalie Amrosi, aka Misshattan, Misan Harriman, hi Misan, and Justin Aversano. So we have basically basically a legend in NFT photography, a legend in photography and activism, a really strong and one of the first flying photographer, basically, and a key character collector in the NFT world. You know, you can applaud them. So welcome to Paris. Thank you for being there. Please, please. So if you're okay, everybody, just, I will quickly introduce you. Maybe I can start with you, Misan. You are an entrepreneur, you are an activist, you are a photographer, you're known, for your strong reportage and you basically really everything you've been doing, photographing celebrities like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, for example, and also your activism, for basically inclusion and diversity. I think, this photograph you've been doing of this 18-year-old girl, basically that's, holding a banner, simply asking why is ending racism a debate went extremely viral. And you're also in charge of South Bank, that is basically the main art space, the main art entity, in UK. And moreover, you are into Web3, actually. So maybe you can tell us more, maybe you can complete this biography with what you're doing in Web3, if it's okay for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the kind intro, and hello, everyone. For me, the reason I'm so excited from a photographer and an activist point of view is what smart contract technology brings to us poets of light is revolutionary. If you think of what Zuckerberg and others used the JPEG to build and decommodify the JPEG completely over the last 15 years of social media as we know it, and with irrevocable proof of provenance and the big R word that has been debated so much, royalties, it allows the image maker to take back the value of our medium. And that excites me very, very much. In regards to activism, what really excites me is the democratization of merit-based opportunities in a truly borderless market. So what do I mean by that? I mean, the next great Jackson Pollock or Gordon Parks could be sitting in Nicaragua or in Lagos or in Cartagena. And they don't need to know all the fancy curators in Manhattan and London and Paris to have a fighting chance to do what they were born to do. And one of the bird's eye view I keep saying to people about this space is remember who this technology truly can lift into a place of purpose and intentionality. So those are two of the reasons why I like activism and photography with this technology that we are using.
Thank you very much for this introduction. That yeah, you can applaud, you can, of course. It's an honor for me to have you and to have you also, Natalie. Actually, you are also extremely famous, and you flying aerial picture from Manhattan, especially. I think. Everybody, maybe you don't know her, even if she's extremely famous, but you know these pictures for sure. And basically, what is interesting also is that you have a lot of followers on Instagram, almost 400,000, if I'm not wrong. And you've been one of the first artists to drop NFTs via Instagram, if I'm not wrong. Can you tell us more about it?
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure being here. And yeah, no, that was a very gratifying experience working with Instagram to launch their Web3 initiative. I think that it's a beautiful thing for the space, and it'll only onboard many people to come. For my experience with them, it was a very, interesting experience because I left my job in finance, almost 10 years ago to pursue photography full time. And I wasn't able to do that if it wasn't for, this Web2 platform, Instagram. I was able to reach so many people and reach different brands and work on different projects. And with that, it all kind of came full circle. So when they asked me to participate within their Web3 initiative, I was extremely excited, not just for myself, but for the space, because I just knew it would just open so many doors for so many people globally. Web3 is an incredible space for artists to pursue their dreams, as Misan had mentioned, and I'm just really excited that I got to be a part of that.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, if you start. So Natalie, you are really famous in the photography world, and especially also on Instagram, and it's interesting because on the other hand, we have also Justin, who's a legend as an NFT in the NFT photography. You basically the most important NFT photograph. We can use superlative because it's
that.
No, but yeah, I have
I mean, you basically started the NFT photography movement.
I just want to take a moment to really acknowledge Misan and also Jean-Michel for their contributions, because Misan has been a voice for so many artists and activism that outdoes anything I've done for anyone else other than my career, and for Jean-Michel himself funding and supporting so many countless photographers and artists. So really, I appreciate
Of course,
what
no, but
you're
you cannot
saying,
say it, but I can say it about you. Because I am allowed to say, of course, Misan and Jean-Michel are great, and, Natalie is awesome also, but come on, you are the biggest seller in NFTs, photography, basically, with Twin Flames. No, but it's just, I'm just here to say fact, and that's fine, Don't, of course, and this is why I'm here also to introduce and to say that this is crazy to be with you.
It's funny because, I don't see myself like that. I see myself continuously trying and continuously creating. So it's like sitting here and acknowledging myself is like, I need to take a second to just breathe and see that. But really, my mind is so not even thinking in those terms. I'm just thinking what's to be created, who to be supported with Quantum, with how do I support my fellow photographers and collecting their work. So really, I don't like to spend much time thinking about that at all. I really want.
So we don't talking about it anymore. But
I just want to say something about Justin. I was in clubhouse rooms listening to this man being laughed at by people saying, photographs. I remember this clearly. They're like, photographs, JPEG, why would anyone do that? And your fortitude to believe, and you never bent, you never made Twin Flames into something that you thought collectors would want. You stayed true to what the project originally was, and I think that's an extraordinary testament to you as an image maker and a builder in the space.
You just gotta stay true to yourself as an artist, and don't let anyone bend you, and don't change yourself for any market or anyone else, because is that your art? Is that your authenticity? Art is being true to your soul and yourself and sharing that with the world.
Oh, that's beautiful. And this is, yeah. And it's true that, what is really impressive with all these people on stage is that, even if, they have a lot of followers, a lot of people, following what they're doing, they didn't do that on purpose. And this is, they're just doing the stuff, because it needs to be done, and they just do it. And, just to complete, what you're doing, but it's my job also to do your biography, just quickly. But now you created also Quantum, to let actually more photographer and more people also show their art. And you have a new also photography collection, that you are launching, Smoke and Mirror. I just wanted to say if you can say just few words about it, if it's okay for you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and I don't want to take too much time from everyone else here. I think it's important to acknowledge what artists can be known for. People see me and they see Twin Flames, but as an artist, your drive is to continue elevating and evolving past what your past creations were. So for me, it's I want to make Smoke and Mirrors more impactful than what Twin Flames was, and that's outdoing yourself and competing with yourself and continuously changing the way you process. So for me, when I worked with Smoke and Mirrors, it's like I elevated to a new form of printmaking, from black and white photography into silkscreen paintings on papyrus paper, and then connecting that to the blockchain in a way I like to call these like my neo-hieroglyphs. As you think about papyrus and what that was used for in the ancient times as creating scribes and communication for what was going on in ancient times, to what we're dealing with now with the blockchain, I like to create this parallel between our technology and their technology and how it relates to what we're going through, and how the blockchain is actually a form of how we're scribing hieroglyphs into this infinite chain that will be there past our lives. So it's like, I like to look at these dimensions of, you know, what we see in the pyramids, these hieroglyphs, the temples, and what we're seeing now online, on our online temples, with the art, with everything that's being minted and inscribed. And I think there's something philosophically interesting there to think about. And that what I really want Smoke and Mirrors to translate is connecting the ancient to the future, and how we always acknowledge our past and our ancestors, and in the present, and continue building this out for the future. It's like, how do we think about time and all those relatives?
Now, this is what we actually, you know, is great, you know, into the NFT space, and we will go into that. You know, it's all about, you know, questioning, all about, you know, thinking about, okay, I'm doing art, potentially there is a visual and it's a photography, but it's much more than that, and it's asking question about time. And, you know, this is a piece that I think a lot of people will be interested also to collect, including Jean-Michel, who's here. Jean-Michel, you know, I didn't introduce you, but a lot of people know you in the space. You know, actually, you like to say, I think, you know, that you are like a cat. You had 7 lives or even more. You know, you've been into crypto. You worked for Ledger. Before that, you know, you worked for the stock exchange in Europe. You've been into also, basically, you have your own art gallery. And now, you know, you are basically bringing, you know, mixing, I would say, financial investment and art in a new activity that you are developing now. And moreover, you are a NFT photography collector. And so I think it was interesting for me just to understand, you know, according to your journey, why you came up into this NFT photography world, and what do you like as a collector, basically?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So actually, I was a collector of street art and photography before NFTs. And I had a structural problem, kind of, with collecting photography, analog photography, so in physics form. That was about the origin, the proof of origin, and the scarcity. So because even though you can have a big interest for, you know, the aesthetic, the quality of the artwork, etc., you are never quite sure that if you buy an edition of 10 photography from, you know, the most expensive and the most famous Man Ray, for instance, photographer, you are not quite sure that you are buying 1 out of 10 because it cannot be proven, you know. And so
you mean Man Ray could do 1 out of 10, for example?
Man Ray is dead, yeah. But obviously there is nothing preventing someone who would have access to the negative, you know, the core creation, which is a negative, and to print, you know, I don't know. If you say, hey, this photography of Man Ray, it's one, and there's just 10 of them in that format and for that visual, nothing prevents someone from actually making hundreds of them. And obviously, because the market is distributed, you can have 10 in New York, 10 sold in Zurich, 10 sold in a gallery in Paris, everywhere in the world. And actually, you don't have 10 at the end, you have thousands. So basically, I was kind of, I had this frustration when I started collecting photography. And obviously, you know, fast forward when I was at Ledger, I was VP product, and I discovered, you know, the NFT from a technical and security angle. Being a collector, being a gallerist, etc., I kind of said, hey, this is for me the perfect medium for creation and distribution of photography. And now people are saying to me, yes, but it's a JPEG. Yes, but the funny thing is that it's actually the reverse. What I am buying is the creation. Most of the artists, especially I think well, I know that obviously Justin is working also with analog photography, but most of the photographers are actually already working with digital camera. So the kind of the bulk of the work is already digital. And it's just that instead of printing it at the start, they print at the end. Because what happened with the kind of photography I'm collecting is that I'm buying the original or the edition 1 out of 10 or whatever in NFT format, and then I can decide to get it printed. And most of the time, I interact with the artist, and we decide to have another edition kind of in physical print, and then I can exhibit it, in a museum, in a gallery, or at the Ledger office, because most of the artwork that I bought over the past 2 years actually now exhibited at the Ledger office. So voilà. So for me, that's photography was actually the perfect art segment for which NFT was the perfect medium.
So that's really interesting because photography is natively digital, as you say, and so thanks to traceability of the blockchain, it creates real ownership and real scarcity. I wanted to know actually, Natalie, because here I don't know what is the crowd, but maybe there are a lot of people who knows NFTs and who are used to collect NFTs. But a lot of your followers on Instagram are, I would say, in the other side, on the real world, I would say, to make it simple. And I wanted to understand, because all of them are happy, they give you likes, they give you comments on Instagram. How did they react? Are they understanding, basically, this movement? And when you started to sell NFTs, what was the reaction of your traditional community?
I was actually really surprised with how receiving everyone was on social media, on Web2, when it came to releasing NFTs on Instagram. I believe that they follow you because they love your work and they want to support you. So if you just educate them with this new platform, with this new space, they'll fully understand how important it is for artists in general, because, as Misan has said earlier, there are people all over the world that don't have access to agencies and contacts in New York and London, Paris, and all these major cities, but they do have access to the internet. And with that, they can share their work, and from there, you never know what can happen next.
Wow. And so basically, it was easy for them also when you start.
Yeah, so what Instagram did is they allowed people to purchase the NFT, not only if you had a crypto wallet, but you can buy it with your credit card. So it kind of opens the gate for regular IRL people to get into the space, tap into it, and learn more.
No, that's great, and I think, it's actually massive, as Instagram is starting this movement. It means that, it's coming for happy few to happy many, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about it is, once you start collecting these photos on Instagram, people like to flex and show what they have. You can reshare it onto your IG and show that you're a part of this movement, and I think that will only build up the space even more.
So that's really interesting because, as I said, you have a strong community on Instagram, and on your hand, Justin, actually, you have a huge community, but I would say in the Web3 world, on Twitter and also in your Discord or other area. And I don't know, as you know, you have a views on both worlds. Do you see, Justin, differences, in terms of community management?
That's a funny question. And I'd like to say, being a photographer on Instagram since like 2015 or so, when you see people like Misshattan over here and with 400,000 followers, like, wow, I make art, how do I get 400,000 followers? And like doing your best, posting, do what you do, sharing your creations, right? But not knowing how to do the algorithm thing. And it kind of defeats you as an artist just because you have the quality and you want the validation from the social media thing and the comments and the likes. And then working so hard for 10 years to try and do that and try to be somebody on the Instagram space. And the galleries only talk to you if you have 30,000 or more or whatever, because they want views and they want community, they want more audience for them to extract. So when I did Twitter, I had 0 followers, and I've been doing Twitter for a long time and posting philosophical quotes from my favorite philosophers or things like quotes of the day, and like trying to do the social media thing. And then when Web3 happened with this Clubhouse, it really like something clicked because like in over like a few months I went from like 0 to like 80,000 people following me on Twitter, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened here, and why isn't this happening on Instagram? So it's like, you know, I'm not going to complain, I'm just pointing something out here that there's something funny, and I think the community in Web3 is really on Twitter and the art community is more on Instagram. And that's why you're seeing people get mad on Instagram and everyone's hyped and excited and sharing you on Twitter. It's just like two different communities that haven't really interwoven. And, you know, I still post on Instagram, and I'm not, you know, addicted to needing or wanting followers. And I think at that point, you do get followers because you're like, you stop caring.
Yeah, once you stop caring, it all kind of just happens
It just
naturally
flows.
and organically, right.
And I'm just like, okay, cool. I don't even care about Instagram. I care about my people on Twitter and Discord, and now Instagram cares. Okay, tune up the algorithm. That's cool. I don't really care. But yeah, you know, it's really the people who want to connect with you, and I feel like Discord's a really good place. Telegram, WhatsApp. There's too many apps. I wish there was just one place so I don't have to scramble between all these things. I'm sure all of you are in the same boat with that. But yeah, Twitter, I think, is the best place, as we're seeing, that really gets the word out and connects to more people. Because there's more conversation, there's more dialogue. I feel like Instagram is more ego and you're showing the face, but Twitter is more like you're getting the whole personality.
And I think you also have more of a community base where, you know, artists can support each other and reshare your work, and it's just an easier way to kind of communicate in that sense. So that is an interesting point.
Yeah, I think the resharing and like the working together, and Instagram really doesn't have that. I mean, they have features when you share your stories or but it feels so like
you tap through, you know, you don't really take a moment, you just kind of tap through to the next. There's so much art that you're getting on your feed, as opposed to Twitter. You'll scroll, you'll see, you know, obviously people's point of views, but then you'll see an artwork and it kind of stops you in your tracks, right?
So when you're commenting on Twitter, I feel like there's so much more engagement with the conversations. Anyone can jump in. And the same for Instagram, like the features are there, but like the conversations aren't, which is the interesting thing.
I just think Instagram is so like mainstream. It became, you know, Facebook, right? Like so many people use it, as opposed to now Twitter. Everybody kind of moved from Clubhouse straight to Twitter because it was an easy tap through to follow each other and then continue that conversation online.
So do you think it's more of like an interface and user thing than it is the Instagram or Twitter choice?
You know,
is Twitter simpler to use?
Maybe it's about people, I think, and yeah, as you said, you know, on one hand, you know, it's, you know, people on Instagram is basically the common place where people are, and anyone can be on Instagram.
It gets more saturated that way, right? When there's so many people on a platform.
Yeah, and on the other hand, you know, you have less people on Twitter, but they are here for a purpose, and
specifically NFTs and Web3, and, you know, everyone's trying to learn from each other and get alpha, right?
I just think it's great that we have all these tools for artists.
Just, you know, to add,
We're
you
really
also,
lucky.
Misan, you're also on Twitter.
Yes.
And you Misan, yeah, we have two Misan actually.
Right. Sounds similar.
I don't know also your views about, you know, because a lot of people, you are inspiring a lot of people. And did you see also this switch, you know, between Web 2 and Web 3 basically?
For me, it's about intentionality. You know, I always say the world's burning right now, and we cannot pass each other by like ships in the night. We just cannot. And what that means is, what is the intentionality of everyone in this room in harnessing this technology? We all, you know, we have to be careful who our kings and queens are in this new world that we're building. What do I mean by that? You know, I set up Culture 3, as you know, to tell the stories of builders and artists in this space, and do brand advisory to try and make sure that we show the world that it's more than a, what's that phrase I heard yesterday that I love so much? It's more than a monkey JPEG casino, all right? It's a genuine opportunity for us to use smart contract technology to lift others. I'm the curator of the Tezos Foundation Permanent Art Collection, where we've deployed $1.2 million going back into the artist's work. So no speculation, no secondary market, supporting artists in Turkey, in Syria, supporting women photographers in Iran that need to have to walk around with a male chaperone just so they can hold a camera. We've just raised a ton of money for the Tezquake, fund that is deployed into, charities like Save the Children. I'm saying this to you all because I think it's really important for us to understand what we can do with this technology. I think the social media companies are going to do what they're going to do, and I'm not ever expecting them to have the right moral compass. But I am expecting those that are building in this space to hopefully have a fighting chance to do right from the world that we are running away from. I'm looking at this audience now and I, don't see many people that look like me, right? I'm happy to see a lot of women in this space, and I always scan a room. Every room I walk into, I scan, because if you don't see yourself in the room, you don't believe that you're supposed to be there. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to do in Web3, is to remind the builders and where the liquidity sits. So the liquidity is sitting, I would say 90% of the liquidity in this whole space is sitting with cis white males. And they may be lovely people, but they have a similar lived experience. So they're not going to wake up in the morning and think, how can I help women in Latin America? How can I help people that live on the spectrum of gender and sexual fluidity, who need this technology, who need to be seen? And I'm not saying you shouldn't all make your money, but just try and do it with some level of empathy and intentionality. And then WAGMI culture can be more than something someone screams about on a Twitter space.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And no, that's really interesting. Also, the way you make the link actually between, on one hand, this inclusivity mission, on the other hand, the Web3, because, also it's a new cultural movement, and this is part of your point. And as a new cultural movement, it's also, we are just at the moment where building blocks are created, and so basically this is the moment where we can. I think this is kind of this idea, try to make things different for this time. Do you think it's something that, of course you're optimistic, but what are the breaks according to you, that will not make it happen actually?
Well, sorry?
The breaks, what are the issues, we could face to be, how can we make it more diverse?
Well, we need to make sure that the liquidity goes into the women in the space and people that have a diversity of thought, because it will be a self-fulfilling thing. I don't want to say dwell on this, but it's when I collect from, let's say, women in Turkey, they immediately support more women in Turkey because they know the stories of others, and they don't take the money out straight to Coinbase and
of course
disappear.
Yeah.
So I think that
So
self-fulfilling cyclical nature of it it's simple, but it works. And the other thing I'll say is, please do not ever ignore the power of your timeline. If you don't have a penny to spend, it's as important for you to celebrate the stories of others on your timeline. Do an audit of your timeline and you look for the last 6 months what you've been talking about. If it has just been what you're doing and how you're raising money, and maybe you should curate that a little bit more. And
sharing is supporting also.
It's as important as spending.
And that's actually, this is what you do also, Jean-Michel, as a collector, because you cannot. I'm pretty sure you love a lot of artists, but you cannot collect from all of them. So are you finding, how do you do basically, to do your choices, and if you're not, collecting from someone, can you support him basically?
Yes. So answering the first question and then the second one. So collecting is very specific to all collectors, but especially for photography, I have a plan that is at 2 layers. The first layer is obviously I am a collector, so I want my collection to be meaningful, not in the short term, but in the long term. So I want to collect photographies that will be in museums, foundations, and big collectors in 5, 10, 20 years. So I always have that in mind somehow. But I also know that being an artist and being a creator is a journey. and that I had the chance again with, with photography. Actually, I started collecting. I was the very first buyer on Etsy of a photographer that is called Petra Collins. Not everybody knows her, but she's relatively famous now. And I was the very first buyer of Petra on Etsy, literally. And so I bought her photograph, she sent it to me, and we wrote a couple of letters together. That was very funny, I kept that. But you never know, with creation, you need to be curious. Because yes, obviously, as you said, to start with, and I wanted to come back on that, Justin is actually, all creators are great, but some of them are pioneers, and they are helping the market and the sector to become bigger, and he played that role. And I think that's what you wanted to say before. And to finish, and then I leave the floor. But yeah, I've got a lot of incoming, and I have a lot of artists I like, but it's impossible to buy all of them. So there's 3 things that I can do. Either I collect because it fits my collection and it fits my visual and aesthetic I would say.
Your taste.
Your taste, sorry. Second, I don't know yet, so maybe I will collect later. So I'm kind of entertaining the relationship. And third, I know that I will probably never collect, at least for what they do right now, but it might change in the future. But then I try to help them by, providing them with other advice or visibility or introduction to other collectors or platforms or stuff, so that eventually they can make it.
So collector is like a full-time job?
Yes, almost.
Thank you very much. Okay, time is running. Okay, so I really wanted to thank all of you.
And that's it, I'm afraid. Thank you,
Okay.
John.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You can obviously come and speak